Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much, Trisha, for being so patient. Now, before I jump into this and share the screen to show your chart, I respect the anonymity of my clients, and I want to make sure that there's no last name showing. Okay, and delete that so there's no sign of it. Perfect. All righty. Let's get ready to rumble. So let's share the screen here. And yeah, I just before we start, just want to say thank you so much for your patience. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I had like one or two people, mainly one person who, even like purchased their reading after you. Like kind of like sent some angry emails. Oh, it's taking so long, or something like that. So I appreciate you being patient, very graceful. February was my busiest month ever in my astrology. This is my 5th year of my professional astrology career, and I've never had a month even close to how February was. So thank you for being patient and not pressing me, because I do think that even though I did a really great reading for the girl that did kind of press me, it definitely can get in the way of the astrological process, which is, it's divine, and it can't be rushed. Astrology can't be rushed, but it is what it is. Everyone is at a different point in their evolution, and yeah. So I appreciate you. It's basically what I'm saying. Really interesting, just like really quick between our two charts, like you have your Neptune exactly where my moon is, 21 degrees Sag. So that's kind of an interesting connection. I would imagine that there would be some link, some very intuitive link between this kind of Sagittarian wisdom that's found, in my interpretation of your chart, and your overall sense of imagination, sense of kind of exploration, dreaminess, all that. So I just want to kind of put that out there first to start. All right. So what do I start with when I do a reading is the relationship between the sun and the moon, right? It's very, I always try to emphasize that. Like, some astrologers lose sight of the most obvious part of astrology is, how does the sun and moon get along? Well, in your case, you have a quincunx between your sun and your moon, meaning that they are like 150 degrees away, like literally 151 degrees away. And that is significant because it's close enough with the degree orb to have an effect. And basically what that means, is that there's going to be no, like, the Sagittarius sun and the Cancer moon. I'm gonna go back and forth between showing my face and not. Just want to put the chart out there. Okay, here I am. Let me just make sure the camera's on point. Okay, looking good. Perfect. Okay. So Sagittarius and Cancer, they have like nothing to do with each other, right? They're so different. They're 5 signs away, so it's not like a key aspect like an opposition or a square. Square would be like a 3 signs away, opposition 6 signs away, but they're 5. So there's really like not that much. So we think about it, we see, okay, so the Sag sun, it's in the 3rd house. It's all about exploring, right? It's in the house of Gemini, so it's all about getting out in the world. It's all about finding a higher philosophy, right? And it's really predicated on this external, outward search, right? It's very outward. It's very gregarious. It's sad. You know how your sun sign is. I don't like to spend too much time on the sun, but let's just say it's a fire sign. It's mutable. It's like a fire sign that likes to start things and just go with the flow. It doesn't really like to be like it's very different than your Cancer moon, which is cardinal. And it's also, really like basically on your 10th house cusp in the whole sign system, but in the house of career. But that is a super different energy, right? Cancer moon, which by the way is the best moon sign, some would say, but I would say it's the sign that works best with the goals of the moon. It's in dignity in Cancer, and that's because the moon is the emotions, and Cancer moon people know how to feel their emotions. They know how to meet their own emotional needs. Yeah, they can be very emotional, but by doing that, by feeling what's coming up in the moment, and maybe having a little cry about it, dealing with it at that time, they don't create this like big repressed emotional residue, right? So with the Sagittarius, though, I imagine there's this huge back and forth, and you have the Libra rising with Pluto rising, damn. So there's this huge back and forth between the part of Trisha that wants to go out, that wants to explore the world, different cultures, learn about different subjects. It's very outgoing, the social butterfly at parties. But then there's this emotional, the moon, which is the emotional need. It's like what it takes for us to actually feel happy and fulfilled. Well, that part is way more about home. It's way more about family life. It's way more about inner life, right? It's way more introverted. It feels the emotions of the people around it so deeply, which can be an issue when you're Sagittarius, because Sag, like I said, it's so social. So Sag people typically like jump, in your Libra rising, which is also a very social rising sign. So you'll be jumping around in lots of different social situations, especially your North Node is in Leo too, which is a social North Node, right? Your North Node represents the destiny, like where you're supposed to go in this lifetime to have your highest potential, right? So I imagine that's a little bit tricky, balancing out your inner need for harmony, for alone time, for being. I think of like Cancer moon, they love to just like have their nest, they love to have their comfy home, they love to have their like nice blanket, and like the whatever movies or Netflix. I know I'm sounding corny with the Netflix, but you get it. They have their version of what makes them feel really, really comfortable. And family is one of those things too. They really gain a lot. They're very family oriented. They really have a lot of times a huge attachment to their mother. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult for them to break away from this also. It can be such a strong connection to the mother. So also sun and moon represent the parents. So when there's a quincunx like this, it can also have to do with a very different, not necessarily a divorce. Sometimes there can be like a divorce between the parents, but sometimes the parents can still be together, but there can be a very, very different message that was received from one parent. Like if you have to like write out in one paragraph, paragraph one, what was the main message I received from my dad? What was the main message, like kind of subliminal message I received from my mother, or lesson? They're going to be very different, right? So there's going to be a lot of different, they're probably very, very different people. So that's one thing. So in essence, and I actually have a similar thing like this in my chart with the fire and the water, because I'm a Pisces sun, Sag moon. So it's similar, right? And what I found, and tons of clients that have this too, is that I don't want to say it creates a split personality, but there's this like scaling, right? This battle, which leads me to your ascendant, which is the scales, right? Which is that Libra. And the Libra ascendant is probably like the mediator between these two parts of you, right? Even though the ascendant is like this very external part of one's chart, in this respect, like Libra, it doesn't really like to upset people, right? It likes so people that have Libra, they are the middlemen, right? They're the people that want everything to be okay, sometimes to their own detriment, right? It can get that intense. to where they are putting other people who they shouldn't be putting above themselves. But as it has to do with your sun and moon, I would say that it complements your sun a lot more, because there's a sextile, elemental sextile, in the sense that Libra, Scorpio, Sag, right? So that's 2 signs away, which creates like they're both external energies, right? Because in astrology, it goes internal, external with each sign. So Libra, like Sag, is going to be more social oriented, very socialized sign, and they always have to really worry about or watch out for this like not having boundaries. Boundary issues could be something that I could see coming up in your chart, because the Sag part is already boundless in itself, right? In the sense that it just like wants to go and experience, because the goal for the Sag is in the 3rd house is to gain all these little pieces of knowledge, all these little fragments that that like kind of like a journalist goes out and gets little pieces of the story and then connect it to a grand truth, right? And the Libra is definitely going to help that process, because the Libra is so good at understanding what person A and person B wants. It's like the diplomat. It's the businessman or woman, right? It's the person that knows exactly how to come off to get what they want, not necessarily in a manipulative way, but it's not, I haven't found that many Libras in my life who have like bad social skills. I'll put it that way. And it's a cardinal sign, so cardinal, it's self-starting. And let's see, let's actually open up. I want to open up this new. 1 second. This new format I found. Where'd it go? Okay, was this it? It had asteroids on it. Okay, so this one has. So you can kind of rock with that one. One second. I'm trying to find something. That one's all right. Okay. Nah. We'll just go with this one for now, and then we'll switch it up after. Okay, and let's reshare. Okay. So, okay. Okay, so I got the aspect grid, although that one's kind of. There's one, I found one of these the other day that was so much better. Yeah, I like that one more. I think this is the one I was looking for. Oh no, it doesn't show degrees. Ugh. Sorry about this. I should. I tried to save it, but it didn't save. But I guess I can go. Okay. No. Okay, I think Euro 5. Okay, no, it's one of these with aspects. Either way, I can just go to the main one. I can still see in a different way. I'm just trying to find. I'm being a perfectionist Virgo, even though I have no Virgo. Okay, I'm probably just going to give up. Okay, whatever. Let's just go back to this one. And then we'll flip through. So yeah, so the Libra part is very interesting because you have Pluto rising. So when you have Pluto rising, you're a super powerful person. So this would be very beneficial in business, or in any career that involves like power, right? And I mean, I don't necessarily mean power in like the bad way. I mean power in any sense of the way, right? Like where you need to project a certain presence, right? Because when you have Pluto rising, this Plutonic energy, which is this like this intense, like I think of it as like this dense ball of energy, right? Where it gives you almost these superpowers. But in order to access these superpowers, you have to go deep within your own self and do this like very intense shadow work, right? But the person that has Pluto rising, they have that, which it's usually more of an internal type of deal. They have that externally, so they project this real so it makes you, even though you're Libra rising, kind of more like Scorpio rising, Scorpio / Libra, because Pluto rules Scorpio, or Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, however you want to say it. Who cares? So in essence, like, and you also have several planets in Scorpio too. So including Black Moon Lilith, interesting, and Venus and Black Moon Lilith. Okay, so and Mercury. So what I'm getting at, and this happens in a lot of charts, my own too. How is the Cancer moon's needs being met? Because it can be very easy for the more dominant planets, the fire ones, the air ones, these are masculine energies, to dominate. And it's like you can't actually be happy without following your moon sign. That's the reality. So everything I said about Cancer moon, it's a must, right? So it's a big part of your life already is balancing out these, like, there's some people that theorize, and I've had this idea before too, that there's almost like this syncing, this merging of two different previous incarnations, right? Where, like, I'm gonna go back and forth, by the way, between sharing and not sharing. So like there could be like this syncing between like these two different incarnations, right? Where there's like two different parts of you that literally like are from different past lives, right? And you're trying to merge them together into one personality, but you tend to go back and forth, and you're still the same soul, you're still the same one person, but there's just like two sides. So that would be my first question for the follow-up to write down and maybe think about, is like, and I'm not gonna remember any of this, by the way, so you gotta like write this down if you want to like talk about this in the follow-up, is how is the Cancer moon needs being met? So moving on, and let's see here. So okay, so the moon is also okay, so these are the major aspects. Okay, so the moon is also squared by Saturn, and the sun is conjunct Uranus 6 degrees. Why is it not showing me everything? Okay, so what's this? Okay, so basically what that will do, that will add to the picture in the sense that, where'd it go? In the sense that, so the moon typically has to represents the mother, typically, right? But it's not always the mother. It's the least dominant parent, right? In my chart, I say this all the time. The moon is my dad. The sun's my mom, right? Because she was more present. So basically, whichever parent is represented by the moon, there's gonna be a square with Saturn, which really is gonna make it difficult, even as a Cancer moon, which is usually like very, very good at being vulnerable and sharing its emotions. Well, maybe at a young age, you had this like ability to do that, right? But you had a parent, one of your parents, maybe they were not like as evolved in that sense of being able to be vulnerable, of being able to like share emotions, and they gave you this like unconscious idea that being vulnerable, being emotional was bad. That it was like that crying, was no good, and that you should not do it, and that kind of like almost invalidating the Cancer moon part of you. Like that's like, yeah, moon square Saturn. So Saturn, it can create lots of restrictions, lots of kind of, yeah, I guess restrictions is the best word for it. I always imagine like there's like a path and it's like a boulder in front of the path. You have to like go like figure out a way to go around it. So the moon's the emotions. So this can make emotional vulnerability, emotional disclosure, like it can make one very, very shy, very, very shy about expressing what's inside them until, the Saturn return arrives, right, around age 29 and a half, at which point, a lot of the energies open up. So I would be curious to know about like what, how that showed up, because as a Sagittarius, you might be someone who on one end was very chatty, very like able like to talk about certain things. But when it came to like the depths, the very deep emotions, there might have been some kind of like held back energy, I guess you could say, like some fear of like, if like I shouldn't like maybe I feel things too deeply. I shouldn't like bother people, hinder people with my emotional stuff. But really it's like that's what vulnerability is all about, right? Or that's like what relationships, like one of the most important things in relationships, right? So it can create lots of relationship problems. But really, like, this is really the degree to which you suffer these conditions is so much based on your childhood. Like the more like unhappy you were as a child and conflicted, the more likely there is like for you chance for you to suffer from depression, right? But then again, I want to always add this in that you do have a Cancer moon. So having a Cancer moon is going to give you an advantage. If, like, for example, if you had like a moon in Scorpio, or like, I don't know, Capricorn or something like that, this would be really, really difficult, a lot more difficult. But yeah, usually one or both parents fail to make a healthy emotional connection with you. And your needs with the Cancer moon are for extreme closeness, especially with the family. So there could be like feelings of abandonment, rejection, being unlovable. So like any emotional distance like felt from the parents, and like stuff like this, it's like completely subjective, right? Like one person, there can be like siblings, and one of them can feel it completely differently than the other one, right? So I just want to say that it's like two siblings can have like very similar experiences and both have completely different outcomes. But with that said, if there is a real effort by parents, or even like some like teachers, or like any person like playing that role, self-respect can like really replace like this potentially destructive behavior that can later come and really take a toll on relationships, right? So it just makes like the early family time very, very important. And it can, if it was difficult, it can make it difficult to make friends. There can just be like an inability to control your emotions. Yeah, so it can be a difficult one. It can talk about a challenging childhood potentially. But a lot of times, like a lot of famous people or people that succeed have these types of aspects because it makes them go through like lots of trials and tribulations that they later like at first it's really difficult, but then it turns into like a super strength later on in life, right? So that could totally be the case. Because like once the Saturn turn comes, the energy sort of fades, and then it's like, all right, I still have all this strength and resilience that I created, but I don't have this energy or these occurrences that keep coming up all the time. Finish this drink. Okay. So, So with all this said, and am I still okay? So with all this said, the moon is also squaring Jupiter, because Jupiter is right by Saturn, and that can kind of create like a very someone who can be kind of risky, who can be a little bit like overly expansive, if that makes sense, and maybe go a little bit over the top. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a conflicting energy in the sense that it can kind of like make it so on one hand there's everything I just mentioned with the Saturn aspect, but the Jupiter one, they can kind of balance each other out. And because like if it was just Jupiter, that's like someone who's like the opposite of shy, who's like putting too much out there. So I would imagine that it could balance itself out. But you also have this, so you have a T-square, right, between moon, Mars, and then over here is the Jupiter and Saturn. So a T-square is basically an opposition in two squares. So the opposition with the sun and with the moon and Mars, that has to do with potential emotional outbursts. How there can be times where it's just extreme sensitivity, right? Because being a Cancer moon makes someone very, very sensitive, and Mars is the planet of action, right? It's the planet of doing, of assertiveness. So in essence, you can feel like you need to like kind of like defend yourself in some way, it makes a very passionate and emotional person, like a fighter, right? But sometimes there can be like too much aggressiveness where like boom, like stepping up, and like impulsive, like you feel the emotional impact, but it also makes someone very competitive, where like winning is really important, right? But like short temper is usually what it is. And with someone who's so like Cancer moon, who's so sensitive, it can be difficult to because like a lot of times early in life it can speak about like lacking self-control and aggressive instincts sometimes. So, and sometimes since it's an opposition, it can have to do with having like being like the victim of aggression from other people. There could even be like domestic violence, like potentially. I would think that's more like Pluto, Mars, but like you never know, right? But really, like Moon and Mars, like there's like the instinct to just have what you want. My cat just went crazy, and taking the shortest route to fulfill any desires, and sometimes not really looking at the needs of other people. But with that said, Cancer moon is going to be very empathetic. So the T-square, it's like a bow and arrow, and it shoots out in Aries, in the 7th house. So that's like the area where it can get resolved, is in relationships, right? So by learning which Aries Mars ruling your 7th house, Mars being in Capricorn down here, it's kind of speaking to how finding, these Capricornian, these relationships that are very like steadfast and consistent, yet at the same time challenging. And it goes back to like Venus too, being in Scorpio, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Emotionally and physically fulfilling relationships are really what can help you heal this energy, right? So that's extremely important. Yeah. So like when it comes to relationships, though, as we said before, it's like how to be vulnerable in them, right? How to be vulnerable. And I imagine it got a lot easier, around 29.5 Saturn return time. But still, that's the area of life, and we have Eris in that house too. So there can be kind of like this volcanic energy in that house too. And it's ruled by Aries, which is literally the volcano. So there can be lots of firepower and, that comes out in that area of life. Let's go back to the normal chart. Okay. So, with that said, let's open this up. You have a beautiful aspect, Moon trine Venus. That's gonna really, really actually on an emotional level make it so like even if you do potentially have what the Mars outbursts, the Moon in Venus is gonna sweeten a lot of that, right? It's a really, really like it makes one very, very kind, honest, just like a very beautiful energy. So in emotional nature. So it's like you might like even if there's like these intense events, people will always see you'll always be able to come through with the good. Like for example, like gets in a fight, like something comes up, but then there's like a discussion after that makes things even better, right? And it really, makes one really like to care about and have this like real maternal instinct, which is also very Cancer Moonian. So, it creates lots of charm and a very harmonious nature, and it's very good for friendship. And also it's really, really good for artistic, musical, and creative talents. And also in terms of like health, the Moon rules your digestive system and Venus rules food. So it can make one really understand how important healthy eating is and really caring about your health and your appearance. And there can be like Moon trine Venus can also give like a real sweet tooth, right? So what else can I say about that? And just like it kind of like makes one really dislike violence, and it goes back to your Libra side that wants to avoid conflict. So that's kind of what I see as this conflict in your chart is that you're a peaceful person, but probably early in life, just like I'm curious how that worked out with a T-square and how that was really how that worked in relationships or how that has worked, in relationships, because I imagine that's really been an area of life where a lot of healing has taken place. So with that said, what about relationships, right? 1 second. Hold up 1 second. I just got a text. What does it say? Okay. So what about relationships? Well, we've got Venus, you got this, the Venus and Black Moon Lilith together in the 2nd house in Scorpio. So Venus and Scorpio people, and it's loosely conjunct Pluto, like they are so there's lots of different interpretations. There's lots of different ways that Venus Scorpio can play out. I've seen it like play out in all kinds of different ways. But sometimes, so that, with Scorpio, there's like the high, the low, the medium Scorpio. It's like very, very different, right? But Venus and Scorpio are very concerned with this very deep soul bonding love, right? Like they are in it for the real intensity of two souls becoming one. I know it sounds cliche, but they want to have very intense relationships. It's not even they want to have, it's just that they're not into superficiality when it comes to love. With Black Moon Lilith there too, I'd imagine, and I also have this Black Moon Lilith, that some of the lower energies of Scorpio can sometimes play out when you're not being careful in not only your relationships, but also your communications, because it also conjuncts Mercury, not as closely. So examples of this are like power plays, like being vindicative, right? And I'm sure like this is probably more, if this was you, I imagine that, you got through a lot of this, but like controlling, right? And with Pluto on your ascendant, there can be this big issue with power, right? Because ascendant in Libra wants everything to be fair, wants everyone to be happy. But when Pluto's there, the issue of power, that's another thing we need to talk about, is how does power / powerlessness play out in your life, right? So that's with the Venus and the Scorpio with Black Moon Lilith, it's like making sure to not let the lower Scorpio energy come out, because it can definitely come out in relationships. And like I said, it's your 7th house is ruled by Aries, so there can be like competitiveness also, and just like almost like lower, what's some lower energies of that, like obsession, like trying to like just like not giving up, like being like so like creating fights and drama just for the sake of it, things like that, right? But the highest energy of it is getting through that barrier and getting into that vulnerability and getting into that level of, I just really want to connect on a deep, deep level with this other individual, and to know that there's not everyone is like that, not everyone is like that. Not everyone has that same level of, I want this commitment. And the fact that you have your Mars, which is, another planet that is very, very big in love astrology, in Capricorn, which by the way, for success, that's like about as good as it gets. Mars in Capricorn is an excellent placement for someone who's able to start ventures and whatever it is, and just can slowly but surely work their way up into whatever. One sec. But yeah, in love, it can create kind of like a serious approach. So some people might be like a little bit put off by that, right? Because everyone has like a different love language. So the love language of Scorpio is like, show me how much you love me by what you're willing to do for me, right? Or like are you willing to go through these intense experiences that might not be so pleasant, but they will bring us closer together? These types of things, right? But it's so deep. It's like literally like a lot of people like have these relationships, right, that are kind of surface level and this and that, but that's not how it is for the Venus and Scorpio person. The Venus and Scorpio person, they can be very jealous too. That's the other thing to watch out for, right? So it's like you constantly have to check yourself and make sure like, okay, like where is this coming from? Where, like in the arena of love, where is this coming from? Is this coming from insecurity? Is this coming from control? But another thing with Venus and Scorpio is that if you feel like you're not getting this like proper level of like death, rebirth, transformation, snake shedding the skin, like within your relationships, because that's like I think that's something you value so much. And if you feel like you can't, like in your moon is so important, relationships, right? So, and I just remembered I had a reminder. Thank God I remembered to check the email that you sent me, because because you gave me extra notes. But like the second that you like that there's not that emotional, okay, it was in Instagram, that there's not that emotional connection, like you are out. Like it is not even an option. Like, cause like this is the, like I said, this is the area of life. One second. One second. I shouldn't have opened this message. I'm trying to find yours. Okay, so how do I find, okay, so there's something, I'm just trying to find, you had specific things that you asked for. Okay, here it is, I found it. I'm intrigued by North Node and Chiron. I don't know Lilith or Juno placements or anything about the vertex. I think you mentioned a few days ago, also any tips for on aspect of Mercury or where to hone in on strengths to serve my higher purpose. Okay, and there's something else you said too. Okay. Trying to find such trust timing to leave a relationship while drilling 2 teams and I was going at 6-year-old and myself to recharge and apply it as astrology right now, but still such an hour. Okay. So is that going on? But there's something else. Okay, here it is. Cosmos community, and you're not in Cosmos. Do you still want to join Cosmos? I don't think you're in Cosmos. If you still want to join, let me know. Okay, but I think I remember you said something about wanting to know about like, I think it was like a lot about like karma, and I saw the thing about the relationship and all the, you know, all those like vertex and unaspected. Okay, read IG combo. So I guess it's that. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So anyways, happy I looked. So basically with the Scorpio energy, you know, there's going to be that intensity in love, and Black Moon Lilith connected to Venus it can create lots of drama in that area. So it's really important to like breathe, check yourself. Cause you know, with the moon opposite Mars, yeah, how it's all connecting. I'm going to bring this back to the moon in a second too. There can be that impulse. There can be these emotional fights. Oh, you didn't, like, you know, example, like, oh, like when I felt this emotion, you didn't react, or it showed you didn't care about me. Like, you know, the Cancer moon needs to like be reassured a lot, right? So it takes us a certain type of partner is the main thing here, right? But back to the whole thing with love, with moon sign, you know, it's so important because it's like a Cancer moon with Scorpio, Venus, and Mercury. They need to know, especially with Black Moon Lilith involved, that they can express their deepest, even their ugliest, realities without feeling judged in any way. They need to feel like they can feel honored and respected for doing that, right? So it's definitely a more serious approach to relationships. So that's going to require a person that also has that. And there's no sign, there's no perfect sign or sign that's like, you know, you need to follow or whatever, or look for. It's just like a certain type of energy. So with Juno, you know, being, you know, the asteroid of love, of like kind of like what we really look for, like in a marriage partner, in Libra, how does this complement this all? Well, it's in the first house too. Well, that speaks to, you know, Juno and Libra to me is in essence, it goes back to this idea of really wanting this very like at the same time intense with Scorpio, but also like fair and balanced and fruitful and romantic, and smooth and sweet relationship. So like there's like I imagine like there's like this real seriousness to it, but then there's also this real like love, this real like respect, this real like equality is super important. You know how in some relationships, in most relationships, there's like an issue with power. Like one person, I've always had said this, and like it's just true. Like one person has more of the power, right? In the sense that, like, let's say, for example, one person might like the other person more than the other, or one person might be more like quote unquote okay if they broke up, right? Or like there's a million different factors, right? So that is a huge that's something that's huge, is to find like kind of that equality in the relationship. In the first house, it's speaking about like really needing to still not lose yourself within relationships, because you know that Venus in Scorpio, it wants to have the two souls combine as one, but that Sagittarius part of you is still very individualistic, right? And it's conjunct Uranus 6 degrees away, different sign, but still it is. So that's like the rebellious individual, you know, that's the individualistic, like just person that's just different, right? They're just not like everyone else. They're not going to be like everyone else. So yeah, very important stuff to note, that there's all these different conflicts in the relationship area of life. But yeah, with the Juno in the first house, like kind of knowing that like there is that safe cradle to go back to, but at the same time, you can still be your own person, be like, you know, because like I said, North Node in Leo, you're here in this lifetime to really pursue authentic self-expression, to pursue the essence of Leo, which is finding the inner child, which is finding which requires, you know, like even though it's in the 11th house, it requires expressing yourself. And when you're so wrapped up, because you know you're South Node in Aquarius, when you're so wrapped up in, like, let's say a relationship, it can make it difficult, like if you're not able to have space to create, right? Whatever that whatever form that creating takes, you know, not necessarily just like a painter or a writer and like that. It's just like, it's like the metaphor I always give is like art therapy, how art therapy forces you to go within yourself and kind of like find something deep, like figure out who you are. So that's a super important part of your chart. So going back to what I was saying before, you know, with the moon. So like we've covered that. It's extremely important that you can express every emotion and not be gaslighted, not be, you know, like looked at in a way that's negative for expressing these things, because it can be very hard for you to fully, like, you know, to fully go out and express yourself and really be vulnerable with that square. That can be difficult. That's not so easy. So you know, aside from that, Venus is let's see here. Let's give a little sharing screen time. So yeah, you know, Venus is really going to do its thing, and it's going to be a very big part because it's a very relationship oriented chart. But how does it have to do with Mars? Well, Mars, you know, Mars in Capricorn, like I said, it's on the IC opposite the moon. Also with your moon, I should say before I go into this, that you're going to have a really large emotional connection to like your career and to what you're really feeling like you're here to do on like a you know, large world kind of like big picture view, right? Or like yeah, like your dharma, I guess you could say. So the Mars there, it's really gonna make it so Mars in the 4th house, unfortunately, can a lot of times on the IC can speak to kind of like a difficult childhood, where, you know, especially in Capricorn, where there's lots of setbacks, even potential like aggression, or just like where you felt like the early home environment was almost like a battlefield in a way. So that can kind of go back to some of that Saturn where Saturn square moon. But it also is saying that your early childhood experience is having a huge effect on your career. So like how much you're able to heal with this opposition is gonna, like what happened to you in your formative years is gonna have a big time effect on like what you end up doing and how your career ends up going. Career / like external life, whatever. I don't like thinking of the midheaven in that way of just career, because it's a lot more than that. So there could have been, like some trauma related to the body. I don't like to kind of go into what kind of trauma it could have been. But 8th house, Chiron in Taurus, it could relate to something. 8th house can be sexual, but it's not necessarily always that, right? So there's always endless possibilities with astrology. But the way I would see it playing out in relationships is that you may feel inadequate sexually with 8th house Chiron, or at least have felt that way. And in Taurus, there can be like a lack of self-worth that can come, right? And sometimes people try to like deal with it by like getting tons of possessions, tons of money, all the external stuff, right? And they can also really distrust their body, feel that they're not beautiful. So it's really important to like become the kind of healer for yourself, where you're going deep within yourself psychologically, but also physically, like things like yoga, for example, right? It's like psychological and physical, like some types of yogas, right? Well, it's healing, it's transformative, right? So that's like a perfect thing for what you have here going on, especially with your vertex next to your Chiron vertex in Taurus. I talked about the vertex recently, how it's kind of like a mini ascendant in the relationships. Like the vertex person, 8th house vertex can speak to like really wanting these very intense experiences and how you can gain higher awareness through them, right? Like very like profound like sexual experiences, matters of life and death, whatever it is, the occult, the esoteric. And like it's really like a doorway to other realities. So it can get you really into like psychology, astrology, stuff like that. And in Taurus, one sec. You might like I talked about how the vertex can like almost be like a secondary ascendant, like kind of how we appear in relationships or how we aim to appear. So you might in relationships aim to kind of appear as this healer, this person that helps heal other people, but also this person who's reliable, this person that's consistent, that can be counted upon, right? And also like you can gain a ton from nature, from like allowing yourself to be in nature. Like earth magic is huge. And just like engaging with the senses is massive. And it also like I keep getting like messages about tantric sex. I don't know. I'm just gonna put it out there. That can be like with 8th house Chiron and vertex. That could be like a doorway to like higher enlightenment, especially with all that Venus, that Scorpio energy you have, like that Scorpionic kind of sex. So that's that. So yeah, but like a big part of your chart, you know, like zoomed out is like also finding your voice, right? Because your voice is not going to be like the typical voice, right? You're gonna have like a very different approach to how you express yourself. So the throat chakra authenticity, which is like the core essence of your chart, because Leo in itself, North Node, is like the low Leo is like, how can I make this post on Instagram, just using this for example, and get as many likes as possible? The high Leo is like, how can I be as authentic to myself, as real and raw as possible, and fearless and passionate, and not worry about that, about like how many people applaud. And that's channeled into your life purpose. You know, third house Sag is about finding your truth, Sagittarius, the truth, and speaking it, third house. And with, you know, with Neptune in there too, there's a certain level of spirituality and a high spirituality, and you know, you might have kind of a different way of expressing yourself that's kind of linking itself to your Mercury and Scorpio. Mercury, you know, obviously how you speak, how you take information in, how you think. You know, you're a very deep thinker, right? So not only are you a deep thinker that is probably allergic, even though you know you do have that Libra rising, but you're somewhat allergic to small talk and like kind of like you like to go deep into things. There's also this level of mystique to your communications. There can be almost some people might see it as vague, but it can also be extremely artistic, the way that you would communicate, the way that you might like, for example, if you're a writer, right? You might like express yourself in ways that are very, very beautiful, very abstract. And that's like what Neptune does. But also third house is the mind. So Neptune can kind of cloud the mind in a sense and make it so you might like really you might like kind of have like paranoia, like or like there can be this like distortion between like how you receive things and how they're really meant to be said to you, right? Like someone very close to me has something very similar in their chart, and she just sometimes just won't hear the message the right way, you know? So, but yeah, there's really this ability to communicate through the arts or spiritual pursuits. But yeah, like I said, there could be like a scattered mind and mental confusion. So it's all about like figuring out a way to channel that. And one of the ways to channel that is through that Mercury in Scorpio, which, you know, is so good with like things like research. It's like, you know, using resources really, really well, really diving into the things that you're really interested in. But also Mercury and Scorpio people can sometimes be big worriers as well. So that's one thing to watch out for. And they can be very, very intense in their communication. So it's like another thing that like not everyone's like that. So like some people might like almost be like put off because they're too surface level, and you have this real depth to yourself. And that, you know, is opposite Chiron. So that could have and then square your nodes. So that there's some past life stuff there, and there's some healing that's needed to be had around the throat chakra, which is a huge chakra for you. And about throat chakra, the essence of it is like speaking your truth, speaking like exactly like it's the heart to the throat. It's the longest journey, right? So with that said, you know, the opposition with Chiron in Mercury is about finding real values that you can subscribe to, that like morals and values, that those are what you subscribe to. And then those create like the boundaries of like what you're willing to do, and what you're like, what who you are, and what you stand for. I don't know how else I could say it. But what it could also have spoken to is like what we spoke about earlier in the reading, earlier in life, potentially this message that your way of thinking, your way of feeling like invalidated. And a lot of healing is needed. Like needed throughout the life. It's like, that's like the karmic school almost in a sense, right? So, the karmic school of like, okay, like, how do I heal from this? And a lot of times it has to do with the parents or the early environment. With this said, you do have a way of really getting your point across with that Pluto on the ascendant, and people listen to you. Even if you're not like someone who's like making a lot of noise in a room or whatever, like people notice you. It's like this real mystique. That's what the Pluto does. And a Libra adds kind of a soft Venusianness to it, which, by the way, makes Venus your ruling planet of your chart. So it makes that Venus extra powerful in Scorpio. So moving forward, and let's see what other aspects are going on here. You see how we're weaving this all together. And you have the nice aspect of Sun sextile Jupiter, which is going to, that's just like one of those really, really beneficial aspects that just gives someone like lots of luck, lots of optimism, popularity. I call it like a luck and benevolent, like guardian angel aspect. And with Mercury, so I said that one. So square the nodes. So there's some skipped karmic step in relation to how your thinking process is and how your communication process is. And I want you to talk to me about that in a follow-up and what you think that might be. Like, is there a way that you communicate and think that gets in the way of your progress towards that, that Leo North Node, which in my opinion, like if I'm thinking about it, Leo North Node wants to be free. It doesn't want to like overanalyze things too much. So there might be like some kind of like over analysis in respect to the thought process, right? Which is Megan, which that would make perfect sense. So yeah. And Venus sextile Mars, that means that there's a nice flow of the feminine masculine. That's also like a very like increased sex drive. Also, Venus and Mars together, it kind of, each of them bolster each other, I guess you could say. So the Mars will kind of like add like a lot of times it kind of gives like it's another great sign of popularity and in kind of engaging personality, like very socially popular, right? Like to have these two, but it's also very good for like beauty, like appearance, and just like having like this zest for life, right? And really wanting to experience everything in life with this real intensity. And it's really felt in the love life, which is like another clue. We keep going back to the love life as this real place of intensity. So this goes back to kind of the Libra of Juno, is that with this aspect, it's going to give you like the harmonious and peaceful nature that will make it better for you to attract like non-aggressive and genuine partners. But then this goes back to this like split, which, by the way, I do astrological counseling also, and this is like something that I would talk about if I ever did sessions with you. The split, which might show up with like the Scorpio sign love, but then the Libra sign love, right? Where there's like, because like the Scorpio is like seeking out this real intensity. So I'm really curious how that plays out. Also, I said the strong sexual desires. And yeah, once again, it speaks to like career-wise, to like any career where you need your people skills, you need your charisma and stuff like that. And your midheaven is in Cancer, so like a career that you have an emotional attachment to is very important. That you're able to, your Cancer moon is able to get through in your career is super, super important. Real estate is actually one thing. Like Cancer is like a very businessy side. People don't really know that a lot, but like if you look up like some of the richest people in the world, so many of them are like Cancers. And like Cancer, because it's a cardinal sign, but really like it rules real estate, but also like things like anything that has to do with the home or making people comfortable, like a restaurant, right? Or like therapy, anything to do with family, right? So there's endless possibilities with that. And so I think the Mercury thing is really important, and it's conjunct Black Moon Lilith. So maybe like another possibility with that is that there's this tendency, like when you get pushed in a corner, or when those like anger outbursts come, the moon opposite Mars, that being the Scorpio Mercury, you know exactly what to say to really fuck someone up psychologically, and maybe that comes out and you say it, and then after that it kills you, because that sensitive Cancer moon, you hate that you said what you said, and then also the Libra rising that wants everything balanced, and that undoes that too. So with this said, Mars and Capricorn, like I've talked about it, it's also square Jupiter, square Saturn also. Okay, so Mars square Saturn, that's going to also create like you really have to fucking work hard for what you gain in your life. You've really had to grind. Your first 30 years, you had a lot of karmic lessons. It was not easy for you, but now it's a lot easier. Not to say it's perfect, but it's a lot easier. And the amount of success, highly successful people that have Mars square Saturn, or especially in Capricorn, it's like massive. It's such a teacher of like hard work and dedication. But yeah, that is the ultimate, because Mars wants to just go, and Saturn is just putting roadblocks and restrictions in front of your way. But yeah, you just like have that perseverance, and then like really like going towards your desires in a very methodical, ambitious manner. And it's in the 4th house, so it's like you might seek your action, or you might be someone that like wants to work from home, or seek lots of independence from the home environment. Like you're someone who probably likes to get things going at home. Like maybe you like to work out at home. Maybe you like to like work from home, and while other people are like more chill at home. For you, like that's a place of action. And it may be like early childhood, growing up, home was like a very active place, right? But yeah, like I said before, you or a family member may have been aggressive in your home during your childhood is a big possibility too. And square Saturn, which is, goes back to that T square, it definitely has an effect on the emotions. And what can happen is that the relationships can be the people, like that can be like where you see like kind of the unconscious, kind of held back, repressed psychological stuff. So, yeah, first house, Jupiter there in the first house, that's just like extra, like larger than life presence. I don't see you as I see you as someone that's very popular. Like someone who could really teach people too, like someone who could really be like a natural, like almost like a preacher energy, right? And in Libra, like Jupiter and Libra, these people, Jupiter makes everything bigger. You have this huge concern for justice, for like being the diplomat, for being, so like you could be like a very good counselor, or like even lawyer, and Libra, it just makes you like really care about fairness, and really also care about beauty and art. Like I definitely see like an artistic side that plays a huge role in your personality. But then with Saturn there, it kind of pushes that back, and it's this real tug of war between what I just said and this reticence in this in terms of self-expression. So there's this part that really wants to self-express, and then this part that pulls you away, and that's the karma. But then it all goes back to your North Node in Leo, which is like literally God through astrology saying, in this life, you have to learn to take creative risks on yourself, right? But the Saturn in the first house can give like feelings of inadequacy. like I said, it's linked to the moon, linked to the emotions, most likely linked to the mother or whoever the least dominant parent was. Yeah, so it can make one very cautious and kind of shy. And Saturn and Libra can create like very responsible, long-lasting relationships. Committed to both intimate relationships and also business partners. It's also about that too. So that's like a very committed energy in relationships. So that's very good. And it's and then, like I said, you have Juno there. We already talked about that. The Ascendant, we talked about that. What else can I say about Ascendant and Libra? It is a masculine one, so you will. It's very enterprising, enthusiastic. So much of your life purpose is connected with your relationships, like because it's ruled by Venus. But like the big thing about Venus, and this is so important, is that people think so much Venus is about relationships with others. It's about the relationship with yourself and what you value, right? So if you love yourself, right, like self-love, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like that is the lesson. And once that is gained, that's when the possibility for these deep life-changing relationships comes, right? You said something in your notes about a current relationship, and my guess would be, we can talk more about that. Like, I know it's a little bit private, but like with all the Libra rising, sometimes there's so much of a need to please the other person. I just had a client earlier that was a similar topic. There can be so much of a desire to please the other person that you can stay in relationships that no longer serve you or that you don't want to be in because you don't want to upset. And you can kind of convince yourself like, why it's still okay or why it's not bad or like even if there's like a million reasons why it should end, right? So yeah, very relationship oriented person. We'll talk more about that. Pluto in the first house. Let me get my Pluto book. 1 second. And I also grabbed this book because I wanted to like read one thing about having Mercury square the nodes, but I'll do that after. I just want to find the page first. Like it was like 80, wasn't it? No. Hold up 1 second. Where are you, page? Where are you? Page. Okay. So also one other thing about like before I jump into that, Uranus in the second house, it's speaking about how trauma can occur around the issue of the value system. Imposed change to a cherished value system or identified resource can cause upheaval and mental suffering. This trauma can arise either from without or within. There may be memories of huge shifts in past lives in fortunes and material resources. So in this life, there can be like this real up and down in terms of like, like this can create like someone who's like a, what's the word? A minimalist, right? To the extent that fear and the desire for egocentric control saw the individual manipulate others for material or psychological gain in past lives. They may experience profound loss or reduced circumstance in direct proportion to the prior misuse of resources. This signature of Uranus in the second house can link to personal and collective experiences of loss, such as war, mass displacement, and famine, for example, including loss of life. Memories of such losses may produce a tendency in the individual in this current life to become stuck in survival mode, in which they have limited the extent to which they open their consciousness to new experiences or to other people because of prior life fears of loss. In these cases, the recursion of events or the needs of others challenge the person who has intentionally walled off their consciousness to new experiences. Opening to these new influences can become the basis for re-traumatization if mishandled, as the stress of the new opens the condensed insecurity of the past, which then threatens to overwhelm the person. I just want to kind of touch on that, touch on different things from this amazing book. But I wasn't even looking for that, but okay, I think this is the page, and we'll go back to what I was saying before. I just about the Pluto, but I wanted to find this. Where are you? Okay, here it is. It was page 148. So I remember that next 148, 148, 148. Okay, so Mercury square your nodes. Let's see if there's anything else squaring your nodes. This has to do with skip steps from past lives. It's very, very important. And yeah, Chiron, I don't really think I have anything with Chiron there, but yeah, like Chiron square the nodes. I mean, I would just imagine, let's see if there is Chiron, but that would have to do with healing, with something skipped in respect to healing, and how it is linked to your vertex. It's linked to your nodes. So there, and it's in retrograde. So it's like there's a certain level of spiritual pain that's been brought over from the past lives. And I think a lot of it has to do with this Mercury, with this speaking, which is with the conjunct Black Moon Lilith. So it's all coming together, this whole chart. So Mercury, square the nodes. So with Mercury squaring the moon's nodes, we are alerted to the possibility of unresolved issues in the mental life of the individual. This can include overly rigid thinking or excessively restless curiosity that lacks discrimination as to the kind of material the mind is taking on board. This placement can represent an issue with internalized messages or introjects of a critical nature. The cat's going crazy. So this placement may represent an issue with internalized messages or introjects of a critical nature that undermine the strength of the personality. Such internalized guilt emphasized in the sixth house can become the basis for internal shame and a masochistic tendency. This placement may indicate a range of communication issues. For example, an issue with trusting the opinions of others. Lies or conflicting views as to the nature of the truth may have had profound consequences in prior lives. I'm going to reread that last part. This may indicate a range of communication issues, for example, with an issue with trusting the opinions of others. Lies or conflicting views as to the nature of the truth may have had profound consequences in prior lives. It's interesting that my throat chakra, like I had a there when I said that. So that really makes me think that's a synchronicity. So yeah, the mind and it's linked to Black Moon Lilith. So yeah, let's definitely talk about that and remind me, like when we talk about how that's maybe showing up in the current life, and how we can maybe learn, especially through the relationships, and how we can kind of learn about some of the past life healing that's needed through that, right? Okay, so Pluto in the first house. Here's what I have. Very quick notes that I always share on my little Pluto book I created when I first started astrology. Of course, I add to it. But first, Pluto in the first house, obviously, I told you before, it's like makes you super like transformative in terms of your outer personality, constantly challenging yourself and others, big time leadership energy, right? Like where you're challenging yourself and others to embrace change. And it gives just this powerful personality. So this is like making me have this image of you, like as like maybe like you had like a parent that was jealous of you or something, or was jealous that you were able to feel so deeply and that they're cut off. And I feel like there's like this ancestral like family trauma that you're meant to solve. I feel like a lot of my clients have come to this place in their evolution where they've come to me, and I say this to them, and it's not just like, I don't say this to everyone, but that's just what I see. Like it's being passed on from generation. And for you, it's like how to stop this, right? How to not make the same mistakes. that the parents made, right? So being Pluto in the first house, you have so much power that I could see like one of the parents like being like, oh no, I hate to say jealous, but just like, because it's also your Uranus on your sun makes you very nonconformist, rebellious, and maybe just being overly strict. And maybe that really had an effect on your self-esteem. And then with the Chiron opposite Mercury and all that, like making you feel like you weren't smart, or that your way of thinking or talking was weird, and made you like cut off from the world and be maybe like a loner, because the Cancer moon, see how it all comes together. The Cancer moon is really, you know, the shell, right? Cancer goes into its shell. When the crab crawls into its shell when it's been too much, when there's too much, right? When it can't handle it. So yeah. Okay, so Pluto in the first house. The deepest evolutionary impulse is towards independence and freedom. Perhaps this was held back in some way in a past life. Freedom, 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 independence, independence. So this will be felt instinctually, and there could be little insight into this. There could have a conflict between the soul, which is Pluto, and the ego, which is the first house Aries. The evolutionary purpose is to search for the self, for the fulfillment of one's individual potential. The Aries wants novelty, instinctually, an instinctual bodily experience, while Pluto, which is Scorpio, wants a deep inner psychological meaning of experience, which, you know, that's really like the healing with the Chiron there, right? It's like a double healing. There's like a physical and a psychological healing. That's why I think like yoga would be like such a good remedy for you, like Kundalini yoga or whatever your own version of yoga is. That's just one random example, but that's something that like encompasses like all of these things. Also, one second. I always do this in my head mentally, but yeah, okay, that's right. I always want to make sure you have Earth, Capricorn, air, your rising, water, your moon, fire, your sun. I knew that like instinctually, but yeah, I just want to triple check. Okay. What else? So so this can lead to repressed rage against the self or other. There can be an inner fear of imprisonment in relationships. So that's another huge thing that I want us to talk about, because Sun conjunct Uranus can really create this. And you know, I told you in this life you're meant to be a little bit selfish, with not in a bad way, but like you're meant to like fly. You're meant to fly creatively. So the polarity point, which is the healing, is the 7th house, relationships, partnerships, reaching out in relationships to help understand what they want due to this conflict of ego and, you know, the conflict that I was talking about of ego and the deep inner psychological meaning of experience. They may be instinctually drawn to some people and repelled by others. I'm curious to to hear about what you think about that statement. It can lead to relationship issues / repetitive cycles in them, which is super common with the Scorpio archetype in relationships. The critical factor in transcending this intimacy paradox is choosing the right partner, which I could have told you before. I did tell you before earlier. So super important stuff. Okay. And also, you know, the fact that Libra's ruled in the first house, you know, approaching life in a very fair and balanced way, taking into consideration the thoughts and feelings of others. Harmony is super important for you. And it's a big need for you to be decisive and assertive and make decisions and learn from the Aries, the opposite sign. Okay, second house is, and it kind of flips everything. So it gives you this real, Libra risings have this real special kind of ability to kind of like see things from like the opposite view, because usually the first house is Aries, which is the opposite sign of Libra. So all the natural houses get flipped. So it's very interesting. I still have yet to kind of like come to a conclusion of what that means. But I think like my main view of it is that it gives you this ability to see everything from, like, it gives you this amazing perspective, dualistic perspective of every issue in life. Super cool. So it makes you super philosophical. I think Libra risings are very, very philosophical people. Um, so, Scorpio second house, obviously like you can have intense feelings about money and possessions. You might actually be jealous of other people's good fortunes, and you'll really value your intensity and your privacy. And, when it comes to money, spending, Venus has to do with spending. So, Scorpio can be quite fixed. So I wouldn't imagine a Scorpio Venus, like in terms of spending, being like off the rails, I would imagine being quite responsible. But yeah, like really like Venus is like what you value. So you're going to really value the esoteric, the abstract, like the things like the underworld, like the shows about the mafia, the documentaries, the things that expose like the real reality of life. Like you're probably a real truth seeker, especially with your Mercury there. So Uranus, we talked about that a little bit with the trauma part, but also just like, just like sudden changes in your income. It's like a big lesson for you. Like money will be here one moment and then gone the next. You can also be like having these like genius, like money making schemes, really original ones. And really like it's all about like valuing the inner, not the outer. When you become too obsessed with the outer, that's where there's problems. And like I said, it can be a very minimalist placement. So, okay, third house where your sun is in Sag. Like I said, very enthusiastic communicator, someone who loves learning, a philosopher, where you can really influence people through your writing or your speaking. Really. And with the Neptune there, like I said, there can be kind of like a different way of being in that sense. So Capricorn ruling the fourth, that can be like having like a lot of like really wanting to uphold traditions in your family. Usually it's like makes one a very like practical, reliable member of the family, and it's ruled by Saturn, which for you is in the first house. So family, will tend to play like a big role in your identity. But with that said, I've said a lot of other things about your family, so we really need to go further with that. But as a small child, you may have been really inhibited by your family. That's what I'm really sensing. And as an adult, you may become a mainstay for other family members. And I think with the Cancer moon also going, I always bring this like full circle there. Like if like in this chart, like you really like want to find a family, like get married and have kids and all that in this life. And if it was difficult for you growing up, like do the opposite of what was done to you. If that makes sense, right? Like the person who like has a difficult upbringing and says, I want to do the opposite of like what my parents did. Not to say that like I know for sure that your parents are bad. I'm just saying, if one thing is proven like difficult for me to predict, it's like how any astrologer, even like every astrologer I've ever had a reading from, I don't think anyone's like been right on about my like they've said some right things about my parents, but like it's very hard to predict because there's so much free will and there's so many nuances. You know what I mean? Like if it was good and like there's like parental relationships are so like there's some good, there's some bad, so it's very, very difficult to predict like that. Okay, so then you have your South Node in the fifth house. So so they're opposite houses. So basically, like the Aquarius Leo opposite, you should study Aquarius Leo axis and understand what that energy is and how you have a karmic imbalance in that. But basically, like there is this tendency because it means that the South Node is in the house. The North Node is in the house of the South Node, and the South Node is in the house of the North Node. So really, that it speaks to this imbalance of Aquarius and Leo. And Leo is like too much Leo is like look at me, look at me, look at me. Too much Aquarius is like aloofness, like giving too much of yourself, but also like it can be like aloofness in relationships. So it's and being and not giving yourself enough individual like time, individual like growth, right? And we can let's talk more about that in the follow, because I'm already like 90 minutes in. Okay, so Pisces ruling the 6th, your daily routine can be kind of disorganized and vague potentially. You can find it difficult to like concentrate on like daily chores. Neptune is whereas it's in the 3rd house, so there could be some issue with like speech. And then your part of fortune's there though, so that's really good. Part of fortune is a very important part, Arabic part, and basically like in Pisces, you'll feel like a great joy from spiritual unity, and the fulfillment in your life will really be experienced through being of service to humanity, being very compassionate. And 6th house is like like basically what I just said about organization. Like when you're organized, when you're eating well, you're doing these, like you're treating your body and your mind, your spirit, and you're being a service to humanity. That's when you're really gonna be at your best and be in your flow. Aries 7th house, I talked about that enough. Actually, it can create lots of like battles in relationships, but also like you really want to retain your independence when you're in a close relationship. So you'll love a very freedom loving partner, but also you can really feel you can get aggressive when you feel like you're caged in a relationship, which I said before. And Mars, being there, you can also maybe like want a very masculine partner potentially, just based on like usually Mars in a female's chart is what they're attracted to. I never know if what people's sexual orientation is, but just guessing that if it's hetero, then that would kind of be what that is. Okay, next, Taurus 8th house. This is we talked about the planets in there. It's just a very sexual placement. Enjoy sharing sensual pleasures with others, and it's just like kind of gives you this steadiness and like the occult esoteric studies. And also it's very, very good for like benefiting from other people's experience. And you have Venus in the 2nd house too, which I forgot to say is very, very good for money. So there is this really good energy for money, but then the Uranus can make it go really up and down, but you just have to know that in the end, you're going to be okay. 9th house Gemini makes you just very curious about the world. You really want to go overseas and you're just curious about other cultures, about like meeting and talking to people from different cultural backgrounds. And it totally relates to your Sagittarius sun. So, 10th house Cancer, I talked about that before. You really want to have an emotional connection with your profession. You really need a safe and secure profession, like where you're caring for others potentially. And you can have this like really strong. So the really great thing about this is that let's say you had like a social media, like let's say you or me, like or someone who has like a lot of a good amount of followers or whatever on social media. I wish I had this moon on my actually I don't wish I had anything. I'm happy with my chart, but like when you have moon on the midheaven, it makes you come off as very trustworthy to people that don't know you. So you'll come off, if you were like on social media or to people that don't know you, as a Cancer, and people will look at you and be like, I can trust that person. Like, so it's very, very good in that sense. Yeah, but you might find it very emotionally difficult to change jobs, and it's a big need to be emotionally linked to your job. Leo 11th house, like that's just beautiful for friend groups. You have lots of fun with your friends. You enjoy like different creative group activities. You like to lead them as well. And it's just a fun, gregarious placement, right? Good old, and that's where your North Node is, right? So that's kind of speaking about how like a lot of your forward, like highest destiny karma in this lifetime is about like being yourself and authentic, quirky, whatever self in groups. So that's why like you should like Cosmos, the group I started that is by invite only, which you should message me about if you're interested in it. And if you're already in it, I'm sorry. I've lost track. But I'm very selective of who I let in. It's like my baby, and I only let certain people in whose energy matches the goal of Cosmos. But this is exactly a perfect example. It might not be Cosmos, but like finding groups, organizations that you help you like learn, but also help you serve humanity, and letting go of like possessive and passionate personal relationships in order to carry out like detached service to humanity. But it's really because it's reversed. It's like there's this balance of both, right? Where it's like you have to like find that balance between the two, right? Where you're serving humanity, but not like too much that and not enough your creativity. It's like doing both of them, right? And North Node Leo, a quest to develop inner strength, passion, heart of the lion, and you may find that you experience times of loneliness, but these times are really a part of your lesson to forge your own creative life, in order to really give back to the world. Like it's like, so like you're meant to be part of this like big humanity, but you're also meant to like spend time alone and create, like especially like with that Libra energy, which in a Venus ruled chart, creating is huge for you, for sure. And especially with your emotions, like getting those out, even if it's like I say this to many clients, like even if you're just writing a poem that you're like, I have a book of poems I haven't written in a while, but like even if it's a book of poems that you're like not even showing to anyone, like that is expression. That is you hitting your North Node. Prayer, like anything, getting creative with it, right? Because there's no single path to spirituality. Every path is different. Finally, 12th house in Virgo, there can be a tendency for obsessive compulsive thoughts, a fear of letting yourself go in case your imperfections are revealed. Let me get to finish this off, let me get my book really quickly. All right, in 1 second, I'm looking for something that my cat may have stolen. Hold on. My cats are little thieves sometimes. They really are. I love them, but they're always plotting against me. Where the hell did I go? Okay. Well, whatever, I guess. So finally, Virgo in the 12th house. So let's read about what it says here in this book about Virgo in the 12th house in terms of like the karmic incarnations. This 12th house rules a lot about that. So your soul's previous existence was one of physical duty and practical service to others. Dedicated to the highest degree of excellence in this past incarnation, your inability to achieve some type of physical perfection forced you to bury your keen intellect here in the house of whose inadequacy is it anyway? Hence, you are now constantly compelled to defend your sharp analytical abilities and your logical solutions, as they never seem to get the credit they deserve. Clearly, this is your baggage, but when your critical thinking has been so severely suppressed, the mental baggage is bound to be abundant. Surprisingly observant, your organization and research skills are profound and instinctive. You see, this is so interesting because Virgo is your 12th house and Mercury is square your nodes. So this is like like Virgo is Mercury. So it's like, this is another clue about that. So deep devotion to the painstaking details that are so frequently neglected by others is your hidden strength. Work, health, and fitness are your addictions, but only because being useful is your weakness. While excessive worry and chronic fault finding were the cause of your past undoing, they appear to be backed for a repeated performance. The past has left you with an overwhelming sense of duty to repair the inevitable flaws of reality. Unfortunately, this unconscious fixation with perfection can actually cause you to avoid the ideal efficiency you seek by drawing you to flawed data, disorganized people, and impossible situations. You can stop wondering why we're so incompetent and you're so neurotic. Past influences and experiences include teaching, writing, critical analysis, accounting, medicine, engineering, and craftsmanship. And the advice is stop worrying. You're still alive and the sky isn't falling. Take what you want from that one. Anyways, 100-minute one again. Just doesn't stop with these 100-minute readings. Anyways, this is a really deep one. We'll go over more. We'll go into more detail when we talk live. I don't want to like feed too much. Although, let's look at one thing. So remember when we talked that you have not Black Moon Lilith, but Lilith, which I'll need to do more research on. Fixed star Lilith conjunct your sun. And then you have a fixed star Valentine I don't know much about, conjunct your Mars. So we'll look more into those in the follow-up. Moon, nothing really that I see conjunct the moon. And then your sun moon midpoints in the 12th house, which to me, that's like all about like kind of like deep spirituality is like a way where you can really like how do you say it? Like really like we talked about the sun and the moon, like kind of how they're at odds, but like getting deep into spirituality is like a way that you can kind of like make them both happy in a sense. Okay, let's just see one more thing. Nothing there. Okay, cool. Well, that's about it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. Very thorough reading. I definitely take my time in these, but it is what it is. You know, I do this for the people. I do this for you guys or for you and you know, whoever else I do readings for, just to make sure that you get everything. Because you know, you might only get one reading in your life, and I want you to get the full cosmic download, and that's why the follow-up is so important too, because then we have the chance to make sure that you really understood everything. So I'm gonna put this up on I'm gonna load this now, put it up on YouTube, and we'll be in touch. All right, thanks for your patience. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.